regulations as a guide. Items not approved by the Planning Commission may be appealed to the City Council within 30 days after Planning Commission denial. If an item is appealed to the City Council, a public notice sign will be placed on the property at least 7 days prior to the City Council meeting. A public notice will also be placed on the city's website, which is www.cityofconway.org. Items reviewed at tonight's Planning Commission meeting may be considered by the City Council as early as April 26, 2016. All right, first thing we need to take care of, Commissioners, is the minutes from the March meeting. Does anyone have any recommendations for changes, subtractions, additions, corrections? All right, is there a motion to accept? Do I have a motion from Jerry to accept? Second from Ann. All in favor of accepting the March minutes as written, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. The first item on the agenda this evening is the McNutt Building Moving Permit request to move a house whose present location is 43 Mill Pond Road to 259 Mill Pond Road. Who would like to, well, actually, before I say that, let me lay out the ground rules. The people who are in favor of a request will be allowed to speak first, then anyone who is opposed. The first speaker for and the first speaker against will have 10 minutes, and any subsequent speakers will have 2 minutes each. We ask that when you come to the podium, please give us your name and address, and then tell us whatever's on your mind. So who would like to begin the discussion in favor of this request to move this house? Yes, sir. Come on up.
My name is Ed McNutt, address 2635 Glowhaven Drive in Conway. The house that right now is at 43 Mill Pond Road. It's on 4.5 acres with giant oak trees. The house is more than 50 years old, and it's just outdated, and the land, 4.5 acres, would be worth more without the house than it is with the house. Then I also own a 1 acre lot at 259 Mill Pond Road, which is about 3 miles up the hill. And it's been approved by the health department for a septic tank. And it will be worth more with a house than without it. So that's why I want to move it up there.
All right. Thank you, Mr. McNutt. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of this request? Would anyone like to speak in opposition to it? Seeing none, I'll bring it back into committee.
Mr. McNutt, how much does it cost to move that thing? Just curious. I've got no problem with it.
No, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Okay, is there, do we have a motion?
So
Okay,
moved.
a motion from Jerry to approve this request. Is there a second? Okay, a second from Wendy. All in favor of approving this request, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? I join the ayes, so that passes unanimously, or 9-0. Thank you, Mr. McNutt. Next item on the agenda is the Shannon rezoning request to rezone the property at 4620 Prince Street from Agriculture 1 to Office 2, Quiet Office. Who would like to speak first on behalf of this?
Good afternoon or good evening. My name's Tim Tyler with the Tyler Group at 240 Skyline Drive here in Conway. I'm here on behalf of the owner, Steve Shannon, that actually owns the property to the north of this property that he had already gotten rezoned to O2. And this property was annexed years ago, as you can see in your packet, and it was brought in as A1. And Mr. Shannon is wanting to, has an opportunity to sell a portion of this property, or over half of it, or about half or so of this piece of property to some medical people. And to be able to proceed through with that, he has to get it rezoned accordingly so they can actually use the property. He really doesn't want to, the property to the north that had already been rezoned, he has a conditional use on it, I believe, for 45% retail. And that's still open and it's still up in the air because he had some different people that looked at it. But because of different things that's happened in the community, I think the come and go and a few things like that, they've kind of put those plans on hold for now. But that's more of probably a better use for that land to the north. But this piece of property right here for medical, according to the planning staff, would be congruent with everything there. And if you got any questions, Mr. Shannon is here and I'm here that we can answer any questions if we can. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of this rezoning request? Would anyone like to speak against it? Seeing none, I'll bring it into committee. What are your thoughts?
I think it's an appropriate use of the property,
Agreed. Pretty straightforward.
zoning rather.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a
Second.
motion from Brian, a second from Justin. All in favor of approving this rezoning, please say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed or any abstentions? And I vote with the ayes, so that passes 9-0.
Boy, howdy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tyler.
Can we get some of this?
Okay, the last item on the agenda is a Central Baptist Church Development Review Denial Appeal regarding an exception to the design standard governing minimum required percentage of masonry on a building facade. Who would like to speak in favor of this?
My name is Barry Hoffman with Hoffman Architectural, Searcy, Arkansas, 102 North Spring Street, Searcy, Arkansas. I actually have a photographic handout if I can pass those out.
Sure.
Am I allowed to go past this fence?
Oh, sure. Not that formal.
Thank you.
All right. Speaking on behalf of Central Baptist Church on Dave Ward Drive, we are seeking a variance from the development standard for exterior construction materials to allow the construction of a metal-sided addition to the south facade of Central's existing metal-sided building. Matching this material is encouraged, actually, from my reading of it, by Conway Development Standard 1101.7.c.1, pertaining to a unified design theme. This existing facility was constructed prior to the existence of Conway's development standards, the current development standards. The existing structure did not require any single variance for its construction, as it was fully compliant at the time with all the ordinances and zoning regulations at the time of construction. So the standards were imposed after its construction. Neighboring pier facilities have been constructed since those regulations were enacted and have been allowed full metal rear facades on numerous occasions. The handout that I've given you there shows some of those. Photos of a rear facade would actually be more in line with our request, as the addition that we are talking about is the rear facade of this. I think in your original packet there were front facades of some of the same ones that are on this this sheet that's in front of you. Particularly New Life Church, which is directly across the street. There are 3 photos on that page that you're looking at that show a full metal siding construction for the rear facade for New Life Church. The addition that we are talking about is not visible from any public street, and it will be more than 648 feet from the rear property line for Central Church. The addition's south facade is only 5.5% of the existing metal building elevation on the south, and no additional metal will be exposed on that side. We're just covering 5.5% of the existing metal. On the western facade, we'll actually be adding 16% to that facade. That facade is predominantly metal. It has 1.8% brick, and that is on the, actually an overlap from the north edge. All of the brick on the central facility is on the northern facade that faces Dave Ward Drive. The addition's eastern facade actually sits 300 feet behind the east elevation of the existing building, and we're only adding 80 square feet of metal to that metal eastern facade. So we're only adding 1.9% to that facade. From an aesthetic standpoint, as an architect and designer, I feel the use of brick as requested for the addition would be just completely inappropriate. Basically, we'd be putting a brick wart on the back of a big metal building. It's 391 feet long, all metal on the south side right now, and we're putting a 58-foot addition covering a part of that. However, if it is decided that we need to build this out of brick on the exterior, it is our intention to paint it so we can hopefully maintain some level of aesthetic continuity with the existing building. But we appeal to your wisdom and reason and hope that you will allow this simple addition to remain a simple addition. And I've actually
Thank you.
outlined on this page here, you can see the existing western facade. This dark square is the portion that we're adding. Here's a planned version. It's this dark square. Here's the existing facility, and the green line is the outline. You can see we're 600 plus feet from there, and then this is the entire southern facade, and it's this little piece. Have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of this request? Would anyone like to speak against it? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to committee. What are your thoughts?
This looks totally different than what we looked at last time.
Because what we looked at last time was more Dave Ward facing, so it had a lot more visibility from the public streets and public right-of-ways. This one would have virtually no visibility from Dave Ward, but the reason, I'm assuming, the Planning Commission, or denied the request originally was because obviously there's the 51% rule there, plus any new additions, and as that grows out back behind that church, there will be residential and or commercial, et cetera, which then would affect traffic in those. But I still don't see it as, go ahead, Brian.
No, I'll just let you finish. I'll just further explain what.
Go ahead, yeah.
Well, basically, you know, our rule is 50% masonry, all four sides of the building. This building is a previous structure, as pointed out, before a lot of our development review regulations did come along. We did have some development review regulations that this one did follow, and you can see that on the front of the building. I haven't done a quick, big review of the back side, but the front of the building, where you see the pilasters going up and down the building, that was a requirement to break up the big metal facade, at least on the visible side, from on Dave Ward Drive. So there was some measure of some aesthetics, I guess you could say, back when this was built. Now, like I say, the reason we're denied this, basically our rules say 50% masonry. And Wes is Craig Lowe is our fellow who does these reviews typically. And he did try to work, or I wouldn't say try, but he's worked with the architect, but they wanted to try the appeal to try to find that measure. Basically, when you have a building like this that comes in that's been a pre-existing building with previous rules, all that, we try to find a measure, maybe not 50%, but try to find that 20% or landscaping or something that tries to break, find the medium there. So we've done that, and basically the recommendation going forward from us is we would look at the building that's there, like we have tried to do, basically, and if whatever the measure is, if it's 30% brick, 15% brick, Wes sent this email to you all, I believe, earlier, talking about, we just basically kind of look at a 10% tolerance in there and see what works, what doesn't work. And I would point out too, the New Life and the Second Baptist, New Life has all metal on the backside. Well, another thing that I was thinking of, we're working with the subdivider right now for all this property around the church. It's going to become probably single-family residential within the next 2 years, maybe even within the next year. So we're looking at a neighborhood going in behind this church. So it won't, right now, you can't see it basically, but that's likely to change real soon, which is one of the reasons why we have our 50% all the way around rule. New Life Church, the backside of that, they have expansion plans, and they've shared those expansion plans with us to keep going back there, and largely, there is no new construction, anything going to take place behind there. They did, again, we did some, they moved some of the brick around from that area to another area. They didn't basically skate on any of the rules. We reached a compromise where they moved some of the material around to the other sides. They did some landscaping. And then Second Baptist Church is a similar deal where they've got lots of acres back there that's already built all around. There is no public street going to be constructed back there. Lots of woods, vegetation. Again, we work with them on their landscaping and so forth to hit the measure that our ordinance requires. So anyway, that's my explanation of where we're at from the planning department point of view.
Brian?
Sure.
We actually own about 700 feet into the wooded area.
Right.
South of the church.
Right.
So
So there is a portion that the church owns, and you can see on the page 10 there, the red dash is the church campus as it is, but the white property there does extend deep into that. So there is some measure that you won't see, but we're talking about houses all around that U shape there, so there will be, there'll be some, there won't be some, There'll be some measure of visibility, but it won't be flat out visible to everyone.
They will never be within 700 feet of the church building.
Not straight south, no.
It's wooded.
Right,
There is no visibility from the back.
right.
With the new addition that's proposed in 2
Right,
years,
there
you
is
said
no
it?
visibility from the back. We have 700 feet that's wooded all
Yep.
the way.
Around, okay.
Straight back from it, not.
From this, okay.
It's, yeah,
Well, it's even further east, and then west is not where we're talking about it being rebuilt.
Okay.
West, there's a tree line there that totally shuts it out.
correct.
Okay.
So I think that's why it's different than
Yeah.
the last one we looked at. I think it's very much appropriate.
Well, and I'll remind the commission that we also, they came and we also asked them to add more than they had proposed in their budget to do, just as we asked Second Baptist and New Life. So they put brick on the side of the new, on the addition, the first time they came, where they hadn't planned to, because that's what we required them to do, because that was facing the road. So that was out of their budget, something they had to add, cost them space in their floor plan, that 400 square feet of that building they had to cut out in order to add that brick into their budget. So now this is in the back, and so now they're trying to save some costs, recoup some of that, and not have to add this in the back
Nobody will see
in a
it.
place that nobody's gonna see, that nobody's gonna use, and not have to add this brick back there. And if we do force them to add it, it's just gonna be painted, and nobody's gonna be able to tell anyway. So maybe some landscaping or something, if that's what we see fit, but I just can't see where brick is
Required.
suitable back there.
Agreed.
I agree.
Make a motion to approve.
The whole idea of the landscaping though,
Yeah,
just because of the way that I'm guessing the development is coming in, Brian, it's gonna kind of come in on the sides,
On the west
No.
side,
or just on the west side?
Yeah, I mean, so the church owns,
the south side.
if anything gets developed, it'll have to be back here. The church just built a parking lot back behind here, like all back here, and they own 700 feet of this wooded
Right,
area
but
back
I
here.
don't own all this, but I thought they were.
Well, they own a big parcel, like all the way down here, all the way through. So some of this could be developed, yeah, but they own like all this.
Oh, okay.
That new development will be on the west side of that red
Yeah.
line.
Well, actually,
Yeah, but.
Right here.
church owns lots of this too.
Yeah, I'm saying, just this side
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
of that red line.
Saying that they own that. They don't. Okay, so this is the land the church owns, and this is gonna be developed. So I'm saying, let's make do some landscaping across here.
Yeah.
Recommendation 2 talks about landscaping, it's all.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, this area over here on the west side of their property, or on the west side of their property.
Well, and there's trees over there across the road. That's a buffer between the two. But this whole, when you go around the road here, this whole area right here, it's all trees, but, I mean, you could still put some measure of landscaping there if that's what you want. But, I mean, that's a condition we can choose.
I'm just talking about back here on their, not necessarily up on the building. I'm talking about back here.
Oh, well, that's already tall trees as it is today. Yeah, just across the road there. It's already mature trees.
It could happen. I'm gonna let y'all.
I wouldn't think they would need any landscaping to the south.
I
It would
agree.
just be to the
No, not
west.
to the south. I'm
Correct.
To the west, it's already,
Over here.
I mean, those trees are probably 30 foot tall. I mean,
But,
they're,
but are they on church property? The ones to the west?
Yes.
They are?
Over here.
Okay.
it's mixed pine, hardwoods.
The city has an easement over there as well.
Easement for what?
Ryan,
The road?
a future road, they put a turnaround there, I think we need to check that a few years ago.
No big deal.
Maybe utility easement.
Get utility easement so they can get in there to trim the trees off the wires.
I'd like to make a motion to approve with the suggested condition 1 and suggested condition 2, except around, instead of around the perimeter of the new building, I would like to change the word perimeter to the west side of the building.
Okay, we have,
Didn't put any, I would say, minimal amount of tree planting, shrub planting, whatever, just to kind of, just in case some future development comes through there.
Y'all don't want any bricks, you don't want to go with number 1.
Yeah.
What's, oh.
Number
there's
one
not
just says
brick.
you can do
I don't
plus or
care
minus
about-
10%.
Well, then not 1, just with 2, with minimal tree planting on the west side.
okay, we have a motion from Brian to approve this variance request with condition number 2 included. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second from Justin. Is there any discussion or about the motion before we vote?
I just had a quick question. So you want to change the perimeter just to the west side?
Yeah,
Is
not,
it-
yeah, instead of the perimeter, I don't think there's any reason to
To
put
do the
anything
whole-
to the south. They own so much land down there, but
But
just
it's
to the
already-
west, in case there's a future development.
Yep.
It's the closest place that anybody would ever
See
see.
it,
And just
okay.
something that just kind of knocks it down just a tad.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Couple of trees.
Okay, good.
Okay, we're,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
But there is already a tree line there.
But it's further away from the building, like
Right,
it's
right,
on
along the
their
property
property line, and if somebody ever put in a road there, say the city has their easement and they put a road through there, then you have nothing on that
Hey, Brian,
side.
that's a utility easement, I don't think a road could ever go in there, could it?
Well, the trees are between
That's what
the
you were saying,
easement and
utility.
yeah, the trees are still on our property and the easement's on the other side of them.
How wide is that tree line, do you think, from that west line of the property?
I mean, along this way.
No, how wide is it, like deep if you were,
Property line in,
yeah, 10 foot deep, 20 feet deep?
20, 25.
I was just thinking, instead of putting in there that they have to plant trees, just maybe something like, just ensure there's at least a 10-foot tree strip. That way nobody has to complain anything unless trees die or something gets cut out for some reason. Discussion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion of the motion before I call for a vote? Okay, all in favor of granting this variance, please say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed or any abstentions? Here, is that an abstention or an opposition? Abstain, okay, and I vote with the ayes, so that passes with 8 ayes, no nays, and 1 abstention. Hey. And that is the final item on the agenda, unless any member of the Planning Commission has some other business that you'd like to raise. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second from Wendy. All in favor, please say aye. That
Aye.
sounds unanimous to me. We are adjourned.